Most teams in B2B do not have a clear go-to-market strategy. They do not have a robust sales operations functions with plans, forecasts, processes, and methodologies overlaid. Welcome to Driving Growth, the go-to-market podcast for traditional B2B businesses that are looking to build systems to create predictable revenue. In short, turning their company into a revenue factory. I am your host, Steve Whittington, and president of Roadmap, an agency that builds go-to-market systems. So let's get right into it. What is the challenge that we're seeing in the marketplace today? So one of the things that I've had the luck of doing is being a Canadian Digital Adaptation Program advisor. I've had to do sales audits of about 65 different B2B organizations over the last 18 months when the program was running. And what I witnessed was trends across all these organizations. They all seem to be struggling with the same sort of thing. And that's where I see that there isn't a clear go-to-market strategy. Their forecasts are basically numbers that are maybe a little bit of an amplification of growth versus really something that's underpinned with a mathematical model. And they're not really thinking about how to resource their acquisition or resource the expansion of their accounts appropriately so they can reach their goals. And so really what it comes down to is sales and marketing is looked at more of a art as opposed to a science. And that's the misstep. And the fun thing is that you can take all these numbers that you have in your business. And this is where, when we start working with folks and we start looking at things, we really need sales leaders and financial leaders to come together so we can grab the appropriate metrics and model different methodologies. So you can take a motion in which your sales team is doing, like as simple as a trade show, and you can model what is going to be the outcome of that trade show based on how many people you need to talk to, what your average transaction size is, what your close rate is on that, and what the cost is. And you can understand how efficient that different sales motion is in your overall model of your organization. So let's back up. What's missing here? So really what this comes down to is that organizations need clarity on 4 specific things. Now, we're bringing thought processes from the software as a service world into the traditional B2B world. And so some of the things that I've witnessed is that there isn't necessarily all the time clarity on what your revenue model is. And you really have 3 types of revenue models that you have to get clarity on. You have where there's ownership, where you sell something and somebody else buys it. You have a subscription, which could be rents, which could be software as a service, where somebody pays a monthly fee or an annual fee or a quarterly fee or whatever it might be, but it's a fixed subscription. And then there is, of course, usage, where people are paying for usage. Now, service is a great example of that. So those are the revenue models that you have. Now, depending on what you're going to market with, you may have different revenue models, and you need to be able to resource them independently and separately. The next thing that you need to make sure you have in place is your data model. And really what I see missing with a lot of teams is understanding what those conversion metrics are and what the volume metrics are that you need to be measuring to reach the outcomes that you want to reach. Now, all businesses have various different volume metrics. So it could be number of leads, it could be number of deals, it could be number of quotes, and you need to figure out what are the critical numbers that are going to drive your outcomes. And this comes into building, taking all those different data and building a mathematical model to drive the outcomes. And then the last piece that happens is you take all this information and then you finally put it into your go-to-market model. What is your outbound model? What is your inbound model? What is your trade shows? What is the various different networking things? And you can put it all together. Now, all that comes together really underpins all your different sales and marketing as science as opposed to guesswork. And that's the difference here, is we can use science now to actually determine what it is that we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. And what happens is this comes down to understanding the first ratio, the first metric. So putting all this stuff in place, the first ratio that you need to do as a CEO and a CFO is you need to understand how much it really is costing you to acquire a new customer. And that's your growth cost. You got to figure this out. So let's use some simple math. Let's pretend that you do $2 million in net new business from a bunch of customers, and you got a 50% margin. So you've got $1 million in margin contribution of net new business. Now we have to figure out everything that goes into all the costs, everything that goes into acquiring that net new business. Now this is sales and marketing. It's all the stuff that goes into that. So percentage of wages of the sales team that was being used to acquire this net new business, marketing wages, ad buy, trade shows, travel, demos, software costs, all the stuff that you contribute needs to go into there. Now let's pretend in this case, this all adds up to $500,000. So you have $1 million in net new business and you have $500,000 in overall costs. So your efficiency ratio, the efficiency of acquiring new business is 50%, or 50 cents on the dollar is your growth cost, no matter how you want to look at it. And that's a critical thing to know. Now, you can further understand, it's like, so, okay, well, what is my customer acquisition cost? What truly is it? So I got $2 million in net new business, and that brought me on 50 new customers. Oh, okay. I got 50 new customers. So really, my growth cost is $10,000 per customer. So I've got 50 cents on the dollar, and my customer acquisition cost is $10,000. So now you need to understand when you look at your accounts, what your average account size is, what your first transaction size is. And we've worked with folks, and some of the understanding that comes from this is that the sales team is important, but the onboarding team that brings this account up to speed is really, really the most important people in your organization, because you lose money on that account for 6 months of the year before you can recover your cost of acquisition. So you need to put this first model in place. And all companies that sell to accounts have an acquisition cost for new accounts, and then they have a retention cost for existing business. And when you run it at a holistic level like this, you start to understand how you need to resource these various different motions appropriately. What I really want folks to understand about all this stuff is that your go-to-market, your sales and marketing, it's not art. It is a science that can be modeled. And when you put this together, you can turn this into predictable revenue that turns your organization into somebody that has a hopecast, and it really turns into a solid concrete forecast that can be leveraged and scaled and resourced so that your organization is really a revenue factory, as opposed to somebody that just gets what they get and hope they don't get upset. And that's the difference here. And once you get those top models in place, you can then break down all the individual actions and model them out with volume metrics and conversion rates and see which ones are more efficient than the others. You may find that you're doing certain types of ad buys that you can't get certain attribution towards it. And it's just like, or you are getting attribution towards it and you say, geez, it's 400%. It's cost me $4 on every net new business that I'm bringing in. That's no good. But you need to think about it, holistically. So it could be like, well, that's okay because I'm actually doing that for brand awareness, and that helps out at trade shows. And that's where the first ratio comes in. So it puts all that stuff together. But you can really start to get more efficient about where you're putting your efforts and your resourcing by breaking down all the various different actions that you're doing and modeling it out with a mathematical model to see what's making sense and what's not making sense. Now, this is the place to start. You do this to understand your business. Now, we're assuming that you've got product market fit, you've got an existing business, you've got an accounts, you've got a sales team, you're going out there and you're making some stuff happen. You put this in place to get an understanding of where your resourcing is going and the outcomes of the resourcing. It's not magic, it's math. Once this is in place, then you can move to the next step. And the next step is building all the various different foundations in a go-to-market system that brings the math to life. And we're going to talk about that in the next episodes that are going to unfold. If you want to get access to this thinking, we have a toolkit. Go to weareroadmap.com/podcast and you can download the Revenue Factory Toolkit that gives you all this mathematical modeling so you can start to plug in the numbers yourself and figure this out. If you like this episode, please subscribe. We are going to be back every 2 weeks with more insights, more unpacking of the various different foundations and tactics for developing a go-to-market system for your business. This has been the Driving Growth Podcast. I'm Steve Whittington, your host. Thank you for listening.